we have everyone on stage here, and so we have several questions that have been submitted in paper forms, as well as Twitter and other formats. So if you also would like to ask a question, we'll have a time when you can ask any question that you want of the engineering team. And we have people roving around with microphones, or at least we will have whenever it's time for that to happen. So who are my microphone carrying people? Just looking around. So they're around here somewhere. Oh, there's one. Hi, Ian. Great, beautiful. All right, here comes the first question. Are we ready? Here we go. The first question is, this one actually came in via IRC, the pound Alfresco on Freenode IRC, if you're not familiar. When will MariaDB be supported for production use? So a lot of people, I know a lot of people are already using Maria as a drop-in replacement to MySQL, and not having any problems. But when will it be officially supported? Does anybody have an opinion on that on the engineering team?
It's going to be you.
So ultimately, that's not an engineering decision. It will be a product management decision, and that's going to be driven by the customers. When we get the demand for MariaDB, then that's when it's going to happen. I know certain distributions are adopting it over MySQL. That may trigger us to support it, but currently there are no plans for that. But we are tracking the situation, and when the demand is great enough, then we'll do that. Obviously, there's opportunity there for the community to get ahead of the curve of us. What is the demand so far? Have you had customers say?
Well, we should just ask everybody. How many people here are currently using MariaDB or?
Would you rather use MariaDB over MySQL, basically?
Some guy's trying to count as 2 back there.
That's okay. He's got 2 servers.
5, I think.
It's okay.
Actually, it's kind of interesting because IBM is starting. IBM is starting to adopt it in a number of different situations. So it's got a lot of promise right now, but as you can see, it's still very early days. And I know that MariaDB and SkySQL have merged together, and they're still working out a few corporate issues as part of that process. So we'll wait and see.
Okay. So the next question is also from IRC. This one is about Selenium testing, and probably we could make it more general to be just about testing in general. But the question is, will the Selenium tests that Alfresco QA use to QA the product, will those ever be open source and made available to the public? Here, let me see it. Sorry, my bad. Wait for the green light. There you go.
They are actually open source now. The link on the presentation that we had yesterday was to an internal link. We fixed that, so if you go to the presentation from yesterday, the link will work now to the open mirror.
Great, awesome, thank you. The next question is about Solr. So the first question is, this person would like to use an external Solr server for indexing. So instead of using something that's embedded with Alfresco, use an external Solr server.
So the product at the moment, you're stuck with using our Solr. We have embedded stuff in there. If you want to use an external Solr 1.4, you could, if you take everything and put it in there. And in 4.3, you'll be able to move on and do it that way.
Put the mic closer.
It's directional.
I'm not used to singing on stage, I have to say. The karaoke king's down here somewhere. So in 1.4, you can do that. You can use an external Solr server and put all the Alfresco stuff in that external server. For more recent versions of Solr, you're going to have to wait for the next release of Alfresco to do that.
Okay. What are we Solr still is to be upgraded, right? We're still on a sort of an older.
Yeah, and that's why you have to wait, because most of you are going to try and integrate with a more up-to-date version of Solr. and we have some embedded stuff in there to do the data model, permission handling, and the query language that you would have to do a considerable amount of work to upgrade yourselves.
Okay. The next question is about core code contributions from the community. And the question is, are there any plans to improve the core code contribution workflow? And the specific example here is for GitHub pull requests. So people would like to be able to do pull requests and have those merged in to the main code line.
I knew this one was going to crop up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so improving contributions to Alfresco. To say that there are plans to improve it might be overstating it. It's conversations that we do have within Alfresco periodically. How can we make things better and get contributions back in from the community in a slicker way? It's not an easy problem to solve. It may seem easy from the outside, and it may just seem move to Git and use pull requests is an easy solution. Unfortunately, we have numerous products, releases that we have to support. We have to be able to merge bug fixes that are made on 3.4 code stream up into 4.0 code stream and up onto 4.1 code stream and then into 4.2 code stream. It's actually not an easy problem to solve, but it is one that I'm aware that we do need to try and get better at.
It's a resource issue, you know. So 4.2, everything went into pretty much quality, you know, and scalability and everything else to improve the product for you guys and to do the things that you needed. And that just took everything and everybody. As we go forward, there's some really interesting new things that we're going to be working on, obviously. But it may be something that we devote the resources to improve that process, speed it up, get you contributing and more. So let me ask you this. How many people here believe that they have something that they're ready to contribute to Alfresco today? You know, and that includes people who maybe have already added add-ons and stuff like that. You know, the share extras. Any double hands there?
That's,
okay.
Mario
All right.
has two hands. Maurizio has 2 hands up.
Now, how, I'll just straw poll. How many people would want to contribute to that and actively participate in direct contributions? It's maybe a quarter?
Yeah.
It's a good number. Yeah, about a quarter. Okay.
Okay. I believe we've seen this one before, but I'm going to ask it again. Are there any intentions to retire the Alfresco Explorer JSF client?
There are no plans currently.
All right.
It's something which we will have to do at some stage. There are still people that are using it. We still have customers that are using it and rely upon it. We still have people that have built extensions based on it that rely on it. There's still some things you can do in it that you can't do in Share or other clients yet. So we're not going to kill it off, but at some stage we will need to. We're not investing into it, so it is not moving forward. But the nice thing about us being open source is when we do decide to retire it, we'll make it, we'll free it. We won't kill it off. We'll let it live its own life. So it's not going to go away, but whether we sort of support it, it will be the question. But we've made no decision on that yet. So there's 18 months clear horizon ahead of any decision.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have any questions ready from the audience before we move on to any other? Marsbard has a question. Yes. Oh, we need a microphone. Yes. Here comes Richard. Thanks, Richard.
So there's a bunch of people here that are from the IRC channel, and I think I could probably speak for everybody that's in the IRC channel if I ask can we possibly see some more of you guys in there a bit more often?
So will the engineers commit to spending more time in the IRC channel? And Dave Draper has been an excellent example for the rest of the team. And Ray, you've shown your face in the IRC channel, yes? Or is a lurker? He's using a Smurf handle or something. But yeah, what do you guys think? IRC, we use Skype so much internally, but a lot of those conversations don't need to be behind a wall, it seems like. So anyway, everyone seems generally, everyone's sort of like, yeah, okay.
There's some nodding heads.
Not a hot topic.
Well,
Okay.
how many people use IRC frequently for communication? I mean, I've used it to communicate with the Samba community when I needed to communicate with the Samba community, but there's so many channels out there right now, you just get overwhelmed with communication.
But how many people would hang out more in Pound Alfresco if some of these guys were also popping in there from time to time? Would there be, yeah, so.
What about other channels? You know, in any, like Google Hangouts or something like that? It's
Office hours.
European hours. Twin says
Yeah.
European hours. Most of these guys could deal with that pretty easily. They're based in Maidenhead.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the development is in the UK.
All right. So here's another question that was submitted. It's another roadmap kind of question, and it's about Surf. 4.2 has Surf 1.2, and what's the roadmap basically? And is there going to be updated SpringSurf documentation, for example? So what's going on with Surf?
Okay, so I explained this a little bit in one of my talks. Earlier this year, around September, SpringSource actually came to us and said they were trying to get rid of some of the extensions they didn't want to maintain anymore. So they actually asked us to take SpringSurf back. And I don't know if you know, but what we've been doing with SpringSurf is we've always just taken a snapshot. There's never been specific releases. So although there are release numbers, and our build engineer, Samuel Langlois, has been doing a good job of trying to properly Mavenize Surf with release things, it's never really been tied to a specific Alfresco release. But what we've done now is we've now taken over Surf. It's properly in the Alfresco SVN, but unfortunately, currently it's behind, it's private, so you can't see the contributions we're making. But I'm hoping, I'm not going to say anything too much, I'm not going to say Git, no, but hopefully if we go full Maven for the Alfresco build, which I think we're going to do at some point, it will make sense for us then to tie Surf much more closely with the Alfresco release stream, and we'll then start properly branching Surf, and it will become a proper project. It'll be a peer project, if you like, to the rest of Alfresco. But it makes no sense for us to try and convert Surf back into like an Ant build in order to do that now, so we need to wait until we go properly Maven, and then that's what will happen. And I can't put a timeline on that, but that's hopefully what we'd like to do. We are aware that the docs aren't as good as they could be, and we do need to do something about that, but I'm not sure what the plans are.
Okay. Let's take another question from the audience. So who else would like to ask a question? Anybody have a question for the engineering panel? Don't be shy. You're sitting here. Everyone always complains, I don't get to talk to the engineers, and now they're all on the stage and no one has a question. Okay. All right, that's fine. I can go all day. I got more, but this is your opportunity. So don't be shy. Okay, this one is for you, John. This was submitted, and it's a question about the big data server that was announced at last year's DevCon. So has there been any sort of progress or movement on sort of a big data server that might be incorporated into or related to Alfresco?
The answer is there's been some progress. As I mentioned before in 4.2, most of the effort went into the product to focus on the things that you were immediately asking for. There was certainly a lot of keen interest in a big data server. You know, nobody knew exactly what that is. In fact, the term big data is so overused and abused, it's kind of crazy. But anyway, I think, I mean, Paul, or you guys might be able to talk a little bit more about what's actually been done.
So we're starting to build out that capability, and it's really coming as a pattern, and we're going to use that pattern first for the desktop synchronization. So there is work that's going on which is around those sorts of technologies and around offloading things from the core repository and around streaming and filtering and analyzing sort of large amounts of data in an offline or in a more offline way, and then providing services which are tuned for particular capabilities. And the first of those, that's the pattern we're using is for the desktop sync. That pattern we'll start using for a bunch of other capabilities. So there's the things that we want to do down the roadmap around analytics, around smart processing of information, step at a time. But yeah, the technology is coming in, but it's not going to say big data on the label yet.
Right.
No. So those of you who were in the executive panel yesterday would have heard me say that the desktop sync capability we're planning to put out early next year. That will have the server-side elements in it that starts to incorporate what Paul was talking about there, the sort of more big data approach. We've also got on the roadmap functionality for reporting and analytics around content and workflow, and that will extend that capability further.
Okay. The next question, it's a bit of a tactical question, but I think it's a good one. I hadn't thought about it before. Is how are there any practical or theoretical limits to how many files or the size of files that can be downloaded using the download as a zip feature that's new in Share? So this person is asking if they wanted to take a set of files that equates to a gig or more, download as a zip, is that going to work out or not so much? And are there any plans to make it be able to handle things like that? Anybody tried it? Anyone in the audience tried doing massive amounts of files using that feature? Yes? How did it work out? I can't hear you, so just like, it was awesome, or no, don't do it. No, okay. But are there, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I think I know half the answer.
Okay.
So half the answer is that there's a parameter limit, which is 2 gigs for the zip file, that is configurable. So you can change that in the repository, global repository.properties. What I don't know is what the practical limit is. So if you set that to 100 gigs, what that's going to do, I wouldn't advise that.
No, we've done lots of load testing in 4.2, but that isn't an area of functionality that we've done a lot of load testing on. So I guess the only real answer is right now we don't know the answer to that.
Okay, fair enough. Who else would like to go? Oh, Richard has a question. Richard's question is, can you turn on my mic?
There
it is.
So, comment and a question.
Go ahead.
John Newton pointed out Google Hangouts, and that was our chance to plug office hours. Jeff and I have been doing office hours, and a few engineers have joined us off and on for that, so hopefully we can keep that up. Question is the cloud as our cloud team has matured, and as we've moved, but at the same time we've unified the cloud product and the on-premise code base, what lessons have we learned on how that works? How has the engineering team evolved as we've had this SaaS component for almost 2 years now?
Okay, well, I think we've learned a lot. In Jeff's keynote this morning, there was a graph, and the graph was the days to release community, and there were a couple of peaks on the graph that we'd all like to sort of level out a bit. So one of those peaks was at the point in time where engineering went and put Alfresco in the cloud. It was done quite quickly. I mean, we managed to turn that around quite quickly. And now, basically, Alfresco in the cloud is the same code base as Alfresco on-premise, just with some overlays on top. That absorbed most of engineering, and it absorbed them for quite a long time. And in order to get that out, some compromises were made along the way, and the other peak that you saw on that graph was when we tried to bring together what we'd done to get it out into the cloud and bring the diverged code bases back together again into a single code base, which we've now done. So that was the other peak, and that effort of bringing everything back together again absorbed a lot of engineering for quite a lot of time. We now have an internal DevOps team, and that DevOps team are running a fairly substantial implementation of Alfresco 24/7, up all the time. And we're learning a lot from that experience as well. And we're getting feedback from our DevOps team into the product development team. And that's the input that we're going to be using to make sure that Alfresco on-premise, as well as in the cloud, is easy to maintain, easy to administer product. It's something that we've never really had that insight before, not at the same level as we currently have. And I think that will pay dividends, and you'll start seeing the results of that sort of very tight input that we're getting internally coming through in the product.
Okay, thanks for the question.
Yeah,
Richard.
so in fact, Paul's just reminded me of a concrete example of that. When we first put Alfresco in the cloud, we experienced some problems that some of our customers have also experienced, and I'm sure people in this room have experienced, with clustering, and sometimes the clustering not being as easy to set up and not possibly being as reliable as we'd hope. So a direct result of that is the work that you'll see in 4.2 with a completely rewritten clustering layer, completely based on Hazelcast. Much simpler ability to set that up. You just point nodes at the same database and they'll auto-cluster. And that was just one example that's come directly out of our experience of running this in the cloud.
Okay, great. Who has another question? It's a quiet bunch. Oh, there's one over there. All right, the microphone is on its way.
Hello. So a lot of the customers that I'm working with, you're using customizations all the time in the UI, content model, and so on. So now when we see a big need for this hybrid model with using the cloud and on-premise, so if I'm offering a new solution to a customer and I see a need to offer some customizations in the cloud, how do you see that going forward? For example, a model, are you thinking that you kind of inject that dynamically via CMIS, or how do you put customizations in the cloud if it's needed?
So the question is, how and when can you put customizations in the cloud? I think there's always going to be a role for on-premise and private implementations because of the types of things that you guys often do with Alfresco. And when you want to get performance, something goes from JavaScript into Java. And you try to do that in a cloud environment, it's just, it will be completely unmanageable. So if you look at what other cloud companies do, and actually Workday is one of our prime examples of how to do it, is that you provide not customization, but configuration. And Workday just tells you, you know, it's as is. This is what you get, but they'll work with customers to add new functionality. Now I realize a lot of you guys in here are system integrators, and the guy who asked the question, are you a system integrator? Yeah, you're system integrators, you're creating specific solutions, and the cloud is often a very cost-effective delivery mechanism to be able to bring those solutions in. You know, you don't want to be in the data center business or whatever. You want to create these solutions and deploy them, but that's not the way the cloud actually works. The cloud is about creating applications, and we see that as the future, is to provide those applications, provide configuration tools that you guys can actually create really cool applications in a relatively short period of time that are very content-centric. That's where we go with the cloud. And in terms of customization, maybe data models and stuff like that, workflows, you'll see those coming in, and maybe richer things with rules, but certainly not deployment of JavaScript and Java, because stuff can just kind of go nuts. Now, what SharePoint does is they tell you to go and create out-of-process types of extensions, and that might be possible in the future. But to just say you can add customizations in the cloud, it's not going to happen. The alternative is you work with Amazon, and we're trying to make that really easy to create Amazon instances to be able to take and deliver that. It becomes a low-cost, low-impact solution to be able to take and create a data center on demand, and that's probably the answer for that. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that.
I'll give a plug for the Alfresco API in the cloud. So you could always deploy an application and use the public API it's not as integrated as what you're asking for, Martin, but it's an answer. And you could, if anyone wants to try out the public API, you can go to alfresco.com/develop, and you can get an API key, and you can run transactions against Alfresco in the cloud all you want to. It doesn't cost anything to do that. So take a look at that as one possibility of a way to do a hybrid solution that would blend on-premise and in cloud. Okay, Boris, can we get a mic up?
Hi. One of the good things about the Alfresco community is that there is a lot of tutorials and how-tos, and you can learn a lot how to develop extensions and things like that. But of course, there are some things that then you realize there are best practices, like using yars instead of umps and these kind of things. And now John said that there's going to be a process of certifying extensions. Is there going to be something out of that that you could say, if you really want to have a good quality extension or add-on or whatever, follow these good practices? That will be really like an official thing, like everything you learn, now improve it with these good practices.
Well, we got Peter Monks right behind you, so maybe you can pass the microphone over to Peter.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, thanks Boris for the question. So one of the things that I've been working on in the last couple of months is a certification for technologies that partners and the community have developed. As part of that, we have a set of validation criteria that really try to define and capture what technical best practices you should follow in your extensions. So right now I'm working with the docs team and with engineering, consulting, support to get that list codified and fully fleshed out and then documented so that you all have access to it. So I've actually, as I've been talking to it, and I sent it to Boris a few weeks ago, but as I've been talking to some of you, I've been sending you those criteria kind of informally. If you would like a copy of those, I mean, I think they're generally applicable whether you're certifying or not. Just come and see me and I'd be happy to send those over. You're just a little ahead of the curve. We haven't quite got it documented yet. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Cool.
I'll give it to you.
So another follow-up question, sorry Ian, from Amy was, what is certification? Do I have time for a quick cover of that?
Go ahead.
So as I mentioned in June, we started doing this technology certification. It's not related to the previous person certification, so certified administrator, certified engineer. That program is independent and will continue as is. This is for certifying technology solutions or extensions to Alfresco, things that integrate with or build on top of Alfresco's core technology. And it is very much focused on products, not building blocks that you might use to engage with customers or engage or extend your own Alfresco installation. it is very much focused on things that are actually going to market and being sold independently. So we have two technology partners here this week, the company is Pernexus and Effisoft. They were actually the first two to be certified using this program. So they are an example, I guess, of what we're doing. And really what we did was we sat down with them and went through their code, went through their kind of system architecture, went through actually their business models as well, and made sure all of those things were compatible with Alfresco and Alfresco plans for the future. So as a customer, you have certainty with those solutions that they will work well with your Alfresco installations. One thing to note, right now, it's very early days, so it's not an open program. If you all come and rush me and say, I've got this awesome extension, please certify it, I will absolutely, I want to know about all these solutions and I'll add them to my list. But we're doing it at this point more as an outward bound thing. We're reaching out to partners that we've prioritized and identified and prioritizing them ourselves. We may open it up in the future. In fact, I'd love to do that, but until we've really got the program running well, we're just treating it with a little bit of caution. So please come and tell me about your solutions and technologies you've developed, but I can't guarantee we'll certify them right away. So that answers the question.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have another question? There's one. Go ahead. There's one on the far. Oh, there's two. Yeah, go ahead over here, Ian, to the far side. This wide room, it's challenging our microphone. Yeah, exactly.
I have a question for your strategy regarding document viewer, which is now integrated in Share. Do you plan to stay by Flash? Do you go to the HTML5? Do you want to support annotation later?
Document viewer in Share. So what's the plan there? And will we support annotations at some point?
Sounds like a product management question.
And the question also was about Flash, but right now we're HTML5, right?
So yeah, I mean it's Flash at the minute, and that's got to change, particularly when you're talking about iOS devices where Flash is just not accessible. So yeah, the plan is to change. We're evaluating various technologies, from just rendering to images to rendering to pure HTML5 writing in Canvas and things like that. There are ways of doing that now. Even the PDF.js library, that's come on hugely in the last 12 months. That's getting close to being usable as a way of doing it. So we're investigating what's out there. We're investigating what approaches we take. And we'll probably work with multiple elements of those technologies to get sort of graceful degradation or options. And as soon as we've got those, as soon as we stepped away from Flash, then yes, we're going to start putting capabilities for annotation and things like that, within it. So those are all on the plan. We're doing prototyping. When they might appear in product, we need to do some of the prototyping and evaluation and decision making before we can make any commitments on that. But absolutely, we as you'll see, we haven't evolved the Flash viewer in the last release or the last couple of releases, and that's because we do want to move away from it. But there's technical challenges we have to overcome, and we're going through technology selection at the moment.
And in fact, on one of the talks I think that Dave gave, he showed a prototype of HTML5 rendering images as an example of work that's been done to investigate those options.
And I would also put a plug in for Share Extras and the work that Will Abson and Peter Lofgren, I don't know where Peter is, there he is, with an alternative viewers add-on. So that's, if you want to look at swapping out some of those previewers, you might take a look at Share Extras. There's a project there that might help you. Okay, who else? Far side. Yeah, that's good.
Hi. So I'm going to be a genie, and I've got 3 wishes to give away. And I'd like to offer John Newton, Brian Remmington, and Paul Holmes-Higgin a wish each, and ask, with that wish, what would they change in Alfresco?
Alfresco,
And that's the product, not
the
the
software,
company,
yeah.
the software.
If I understood the question, you're going to give 3 wishes, and I get a wish, and what would I wish in the product if I could wish anything? How about an ATM feature that just constantly pushes out money?
Oh, you're so predictable.
Oh boy, you're asked. You know, if you ask that at the beginning of the conference, you'll get a much better answer than at the very end of the conference. You know, I think, you know, out of all the things that I talked about the other day, I think the analytics is going to be the most interesting for me, because I think it will help sell Alfresco a lot more. And I've mentioned this before, managers love graphs, and so that helps kind of communicate the value of Alfresco. But, you know, I think we'd probably learn more about our internal implementation of Alfresco as well by having those analytics and understanding what's actually in there and velocity of stuff and who's doing what and whatever. So that's my wish. And did you want to give the other 2 wishes
Yeah, I
to
think
somebody else?
I had a wish as well. Yeah. Thanks, Robin. I think at the moment for me, something that is the primary focus for me and therefore for the engineering team as a whole is a focus on doing things well, doing things with high quality, and just generally improving the quality of the products, making sure that it consistently hits the expectations of the people that are using the product. There's quite a lot of work to be done from a testing point of view, and we're putting a huge amount of effort in at the moment in speeding up the way in which we test the product. At the moment, we have a lot of manual tests that go into every enterprise release, and it takes a huge amount of time and a huge amount of effort. And if I had one wish right now, it would be to get us to the point where we can commit a piece of code and get it through the testing process to a point where we are very confident that that is good stuff much quicker. So within a couple of days, we could get an enterprise release out. So my wish would be for 80% code coverage, 100% confidence in the quality of the product in 2 days' worth of effort.
I think
and that's 3 wishes.
I just want to.
No, that's just one wish.
I just wanted to observe that you're not very greedy with your wishes. You said 2 days when you could have said instantly. So I just think that's a nice.
See, even my wishing is pragmatic.
Pragmatic wishing. Very well.
You should have wished for more wishes.
All right, so Paul, do you want to give us your wish?
So mine around the product is, I think, process and sort of the ease of doing things. So when we started, I mean, one of the first features we put in was the rules, that you could define rules on folders and do stuff. And a motivated user could do an awful lot, you know, very easily. So doing stuff with business. So how many people saw Frederick's presentation on the, you know, easy definition of workflows and things like this? Okay, well, all of you, just go and watch that, and that's what I wish for, and I wish we had it today in a really nice, you know, end user sort of. I think making things easier for the user to be able to do things themselves without, I'm sorry, partners and IT departments, without having to come to you to do everything. For me, that's it, you know, enabling them to do the stuff themselves.
Speaking of watching sessions that you may have missed, so you may be wondering if every session is being recorded, and the answer is yes. So our goal was to record every single session that was presented, and it's the audio and the laptop feed, and we want to get those posted online by the first week of December, I think is what we decided, the end of that week. So all you have to do is come back to the Summit website, go to the session that you missed, and you should see the session recording embedded right there in the page. And all the presentations should be there as well. So if you're a speaker and you haven't uploaded your presentation yet, I'm getting a lot of questions from people, and I'm guilty of it, actually. Where is your presentation? And so we will make sure that those are available on the Summit website so you can share it with the unfortunate co-workers who weren't able to join us here in Barcelona.
I've found it very useful to download all your presentation speakers, and thank you very much for preparing it way in advance so that we can have access to it. I said very hypocritically.
Great. So are there other questions that we could entertain here? No? Okay, well, I think before we close, I think we should recognize that there has been a ton of work in the latest release, in the 4.2 release, and it is just unbelievable the amount of work. And I've had so many people tell me how beautiful the user interface is and how pleased people are with that release. So if you guys would indulge, and let's show our appreciation to the folks on the stage for the release. So well done. Well done. All right, well, I guess that's it. We've come to the end of another annual conference here. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I certainly did. And I hope to see everybody back in a room somewhere in Europe a year from now, and bring a friend, and we can grow this thing and keep going. So thanks, everybody. Safe travels.